Hey guys, let's just talk about registration and how that applies to trade shows. If you've ever been to a trade show, or really any event, you're generally having to do some registration to let people know, hey, I want to come to this thing. So this is like the first touch point. And we talked about this earlier in the series of trade show lectures. So we know it's the process of signing up to participate in an event. It's super important because whether you have a positive experience during the registration is going to help determine whether the whole experience with the event is positive, and whether you want to come back and do it again next year, and whether you want to encourage other people to come along with you. So that may seem like it's something that just basically we worry about if you were an event planner, but you also got to keep in mind that if people have a bad association with the whole event, that might carry over to how they perceive their experience when they come by your booth. So you really want to make sure that you're participating in events, whether it's a trade show, a conference, whatever it might be. It needs to be something that's aligned with your brand. So if you're a professional brand, you want people to have positive experiences, you need to make sure that the event you're participating matches that as well. We often want people to do advanced registration because, well, basically we need to know how many people are coming to this thing. That's going to matter a lot because there's probably going to be fire safety limits about how many people can be at the exhibit hall at one time. So that'll help manage traffic. And also allows them to figure out, how big of a venue should we be using? Do we need the whole space, or could we opt out for part of that in the contract? So what are you doing at this stage? Well, you are going to start building some promotional materials that are helping people convince them, that you should come to this conference, you should attend, and here's the reasons why. So this is the early part of what you will do as an event marketer. You want to focus less on collecting all the information of your attendees from at the very front, because if you've created a really onerous sign-up process where you have to fill out 10 pages of information, no one's going to go through all that. So you really want to just make it simple, get them to have some kind of conversion, and even just make a commitment to come is great. Just send them your name and your email and say, click a box, I'm coming. That can be scary for some people though, because they want to get the sale in, right? They want to make sure you get the money. I think when you are trying to get people, you really want to talk about the crowd, because people, if they're going to an event, they think of it as a fun activity. They think of it as we're getting together with a group. Who are these people? Do I want to hang out with these people? Do these people have the same knowledge as me? Am I going to have meaningful conversations? So you're really talking up who this target audience is, so people can say, yes, that is the group I want to be with. This shouldn't be the case. We should really go to the event because we care a lot about the content, but let's be honest, people go to conferences based upon the location. If you choose sunny, warm locations for wintertime conferences, guess what? Those numbers do very well compared to the conference that is held in the snowy, cold Midwest in January. So you need to be thinking about location. And really emphasizing those aspects, because it is a great way to get people to sign up. And of course, you should be using all kinds of promotional efforts. SEO in particular is really good, because while a lot of people think, oh, we just got to build a website, people will come and find us, they'll sign up for the conference, you need to make sure that the right target is getting lots of reminders about this great event, so it helps them get over the barrier of what the cost is. When you have people register, you can have one price for all, but most conferences don't do that. They have a wide varieties, because that means there's more opportunities for creating revenue. If you want to offer a pass to enjoy in-person events, you often will charge more for that. I think that tends to make a lot of sense, right? Because you have to do all the logistics of organizing something. And that's, I think, been a hard one for people who are trying to do virtual conferences this year. It's wait, now we have to charge that much less, and we're still doing all this work of planning. But the truth is, yeah, if you are trying to charge the same amount of money, I've been to conferences where you're paying about $800 to $1,000 per day. I don't think people can continue to keep paying that kind of money. I don't think companies are going to continue to reimburse it, but sometimes going to conferences can be really pricey. And the idea of doing that for a virtual conference, I mean, that's going to be a real tough sell. You could include meals, or you might not. I think when we talked about trade shows specifically, usually meals are not included, though food is often given away by vendors to entice people over to their booth. But if you are going to offer food, that's a really important data point you need to be collecting, right? Because you need to make sure and understand meal allergies, and you need to get an accurate count of how many people are going to eat what. It's very common that hotel accommodations are kind of mixed in with the registration, because depending on what type of event is, you might be required to actually stay at a hotel. That's not so much true for a trade show, but for conferences, conventions, that's very, very common. We talked about having lounges earlier, and like how that can create an exclusive environment, and that can be very appealing for a conference or trade show attendees. Well, those lounges often have a price attached to them, so this is where you would be pushing that idea and say, here's how much you would pay for that, and here's exactly what you get for it. And then there's other kinds of things you can have add-ons, like a lot of people like to get a t-shirt to commemorate they went to the event, or I think that's a common one, but I think you're seeing a lot more in the past 5 years of higher priced experiences, like, go to a VIP party, go to a listening party, and like have some musical artist be there. That's a very common thing, because people know those are the more exclusive networking events, and of course they like being in on the exclusive thing. Payment is something that is quite challenging. Like I said earlier, you want them to get the registration complete. And if you say, hey, you've got to put down your credit card right now in step 1, a lot of people don't complete the form. So sometimes I think it's good just to get them to commit and then immediately send them the invoice. But then a lot of people would also argue, but then people won't complete that, and then you've got all these people starting it and never finished it, and never finishing doesn't help. I think it still helps, because now you've got a database of how many people at least were interested in the idea, and you can follow up with them again on other things. It's all just a matter of thinking short-term, thinking long-term. As someone who's done a lot of brand marketing, I tend to be in favor of brand building, build brand equity, think long-term. Salespeople tend to look at it from a different perspective. You're seeing a lot of events now asking people to pay for the thing in full rather than doing partial payments. It used to be partial payments was very common, because it just made it more easier to swallow. Like, I don't have to pay $3,000 to go to this thing. I can just pay in 3 installments of $1,000 each. But because most people who go to conferences now are trying to get that reimbursed by their employers, it's just easier to get one flat fee paid. That way it's easier to get, show all the receipts, invoices to their employer, and have the paperwork and get the money. Of course, the key thing you really need to be thinking about is you got to have a payment system set up. If you are imagining doing some kind of events, you can't just start collecting money. You really need to be thinking about your bookkeeping, and like, how are you going to collect that money? Are you going to be using technologies that will accept credit card payments? So some of the things, like when I've done conferences in the past, I've used Square, because it allowed me, I don't normally run a business, so I can start Square for the conference, then I can turn it off and put away the little reader, and I don't have to worry about it anymore. But more and more we're doing things that are cloud-based, where I don't even need to worry about that. So I just work with an e-commerce site such as PayPal or Google Pay, and then just ask all those people to integrate with my website, and they can capture all the payment for me. And then what they'll do is they will charge me a fee for that service. You can also think about using a ticketing system, because when you're going to an event, you often want to have a physical ticket presented to people, so that's easily scanned when they arrive at the event. So It makes sense to consider using things like Eventbrite, Eventzilla, Events by Facebook, because they will not only handle the payment, but then they are also going to just package up the ticketing, and maybe they can also provide some, the basic information along with it. But then you're going to be paying a higher price, a higher fee for that service because they're doing more work. Make sure also that when you are thinking about all these financial aspects that you are planning to give a receipts to your registrants. And if you've not completed all the total payment, then you need to be sending an invoice, which will say, here's your remaining balance. People like stuff, so you want to be thinking about offering some tangible things to people as part of the registration process. So it's pretty normal. You would want to give them a program or a directory because you want them to understand, hey, this is where all the different trade show booths are, or here's where all the different conference panels are going to be. Here's what time the opening ceremony is going to be for the convention. Whatever kind of event you're at, you need to know a little bit about what's going on. Like I said earlier, the program sometimes called a directory. That gets me confused because when I think of directories, I tend to think about physical signage, and you look to a directory posted up. That's like a shared thing that people look at. But anyway, I saw that a lot in the literature for event planning. They often refer to the programs as directories. I'm sure you're all familiar with the term of swag. Swag is stuff we're giving away. I know we all think of stuff as stuff we all get as an acronym, but it's not really. It is not an acronym. When the word swag became used for giving away things at an event, it actually stems from British slang. There would be like jewel thieves in like the 1800s. They would refer to the getaway bag as for the loot as the swag bag. So I guess when events started offering swag to people, they were imagining people, oh, you're getting away with such great stuff. But, here's the truth. Most of the swag that's given away at conferences, a lot of it is garbage. A lot of it is like keychains, pencils, like squeezy things for your avoiding carpal tunnel syndrome, a mouse pad, all kinds of stuff that you probably already have, probably don't need. And it's all just, they got surfaces that you can splash somebody's marketing message across. And I get why people do it. They want to have their message out there in a tangible thing that will last forever. But the truth is most of the stuff goes straight into the garbage. And that has created a huge problem for the event industry because it really helps contribute to the idea that trade shows just are sustainability nightmares, because we're creating all this material that people do not need. That drives me crazy all the time when we go to DECA competitions and at the national level, and they just give you so much garbage that none of the students want. But it's just part of the way that the industry does events, and so they feel like, oh, you have to give away tangible garbage. Badging is super important, right? Because this is how you're going to get into places. Badging are a type of accreditation that lets all the staff know that you're supposed to be there. So whether that's getting through the front gate, or maybe that's like you're in the line to get some food, it's really important because it helps get you permission, it gets you access. But it's also important because it is your identifying information. So imagine if I am working a trade show booth, if I can quickly scan everybody that comes by to the booth, I don't have to ask for your business card, or I don't have to enter all your information in manually into a CRM system. I just scan it, and then by scanning it, I can connect to the database that was set up by the people who are running the event, and then I get all that information easily imported into my CRM system at a later time. That's really good, not just for you as the brand who's manning a booth, but for the whole event planners, because it helps them understand which booths were actually popular. And it gives them a little more understanding of like what do their attendees need, so they can use that information to guide next year's version of this event. The badges themselves are like marketing content, right? Because usually these things are big. They're unnecessarily big. And on the badge itself, you can see branding splashed across it. They also usually come with a lanyard. That's the cord that hangs around your neck to support the badge. And usually the lanyard is branded with some company. Um, there's a lot of vendors that like to say, oh, here's like a ribbon that you can take the adhesive off and put at the bottom of your badge. And they also like to put out enamel pins that are kind of nice looking. They're kind of collectible. So people like to try to get as many pins as they can and stick them into the badge. And it's just kind of it's a sort of gamification, right? You're running around to all the different booths trying to collect as many awards that you can. Like, oh, look, I got an enamel pin. I got an award. It's effective, though. It gets people to participate. That badge, no one's going to have necessarily sentimental value of the badge, but it's amazing how many people save their badges afterwards as if, like, oh, it's my war trophy for getting through that conference or that trade show. And if you were smart as a marketer, you could think about taking that badge and then creating post-event activities. And it could be the ticket to entry. So that could be a way to keep the conversations going with all the people who stop by your booth. I think that's really smart and an underused promotional opportunity. Just as you hope lots of people will sign up, you got to expect there's going to be some people that will cancel. And it's very easy to forget this. Like the first time you're running an event, there are always cancellations. Sometimes people let you know in advance. Sometimes they just never show up. So you've got to have a cancellation policy all figured out about what are you going to do. Do you still let the attendees have some value? Can they still go and like check out all the online materials that came with the payment of this, even if they never physically showed up? I think it's good that they get some access to it, because that way you can say, well, you're not getting your money back, but this is what you do still get for paying for that. So it's good to have all of that figured out in advance. There is lots of different ways that you can be doing, the registration. Registration for trade shows and other events is often built into trade show software. I wanted to talk about Event Squid. This is a software tool that's designed for event planning, but it has a particular emphasis on the registration process. So I want you all to watch the video I posted in Canvas to learn more about their offering, and consider how using different tools that you're reviewing in this class can aid and assist you with getting attendees signed up and excited to come participate at that trade show that you are displaying in. There's lots of tools out there, but I think this is a good one to review. And if anyone's got any questions about these tools, I'm happy to answer them for you. Have a great day.